Welcome, friends,
to the How-To Heretic.
I'm Uncle Mark.
And I'm Uncle Dan.
And I'm Uncle Doug.
And this is your user's guide to life on the outside.
That's right. Leaving religion is the first step into a larger, better world.
But it can also be a scary world. Things work differently now.
Ooh, never fear. That's why we're here.
We're your audio uncles. And with help from good friends and experts in all sorts of fields,
we're going to share the stories and seek the knowledge to build a great life.
After all, you only get the one that we know of, so you better make the most of it.
Well, guys,
hello.
We have a show that has music.
Yeah.
We have a show that has a letter.
And yes.
A mercifully short book, and we have a show that has a whole another crazy thing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna talk about the dance, but really my greatest passion, dance.
Yeah. Well, I'm before you get to that, I'm gonna start us off with a very short letter with a lot of bad stuff in it, in a book with a lot of bad stuff in it. Why is anyone still reading it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I am going to right now issue a bit of a trigger warning, because at the end we're going to bring our friend Greg Rogers on, who is going to talk to us about human trafficking.
Yeah.
And we will discuss issues like child sexual abuse
and pornography and stuff like that. And he is our very own secret agent man, and he knows of what he speaks, but there's some kind of rough parts of the conversation. But
also he's a delightful fella and worth the listen. So very interesting stuff coming up.
So join us, won't you, on the other side of whatever this is.
Uncle Dan.
Hey.
We've talked on this show about the fact that we all have backgrounds in religion and such, and to that end, there are moments of my childhood, by no fault of my own, when they make the movie about my life, I would prefer that they start it in my late 20s.
I've already sold a screenplay, Doug. It doesn't.
Yeah, it's too late. Just too late.
I want to be like Darth Vader. I want to show up fully formed. Don't need to know about my past. Well, Uncle Mark, you've got some things that could probably dovetail with my embarrassing childhood.
Well, before we get there, I want to make some very important points. So, as we've discussed many times before, you guys, when we started this podcast, it was originally going to be about my passion for people who are passionate about fantasy sports. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I just remember the hours and hours of brainstorming over titles.
The passion of Uncle Mark, I think, is where we settled.
I don't mean we were going to make fantasy sports league podcast, fantasy sports leagues. There's a lot of S's in their podcast. We were going to make a podcast about leagues of YouTubers who make fantasy sports leagues, kind of a dream team that dreams about dream teams, if you will. But you guys vetoed me on the admittedly reasonable grounds that I don't know anything about sports, fantasy or otherwise, nor about the people who know enough about sports to fantasize about them or even YouTube. But you did make me a solemn promise. Together we swore a tontine under the watchful eye of Pope Levi the Unclean, our resident stuffed weasel, that on a date of my choosing, I could take over the show and indulge in my second greatest passion. So it is today. We will do our salute to American folk dance.
Damn it, the tontine!
Cody,
I'm foiled again!
Cody, put crowd cheers over patriotic music here. Yes, good people, today we salute what may be seen worldwide as the most iconically American of all the great American folk dances, the square dance.
Oh, I got it wrong.
What were you going to say?
I said twerk.
Oh, it should be.
I thought it was the twerk.
I think after this segment, you will wish that it was the twerk.
The river dance is Irish, right?
River dance I think is universal.
What about the forbidden dance?
Well, it's forbidden for a reason, Doug, and we can't discuss it here.
Yeah.
So the square dance, as many of our American listeners, myself included, inexplicably found themselves participating in their phys ed class in middle school. And that was because a man who very much admired Hitler and who Hitler very much admired back made goddamn sure we had to. So
What?
take your partner by the hand and let's Alamand right down to Crazy Town to see why maybe that do-si-do is really more of a do-si-don't. So in the late teens and early 20s, a lot of things were sweeping the American landscape. I mean, late 19s and early 1920s. None of the fucking garbage we're in now. A lot of World War I veterans with severe cases of what would one day come to be known as PTSD were all abroad in the land.
Shell shock.
The shell shock. The deadly Spanish flu was rampant. There was rampant racist terrorism of the Ku Klux Klan. So I guess it is a time very much like today, with a general sort of folksy racism overall, and of course at that time, jazz. Now,
Skun-dun-dun.
from here in this idyllic, placid year of 2020, most Americans would look very fondly at both square dancing and jazz as both quintessentially American art forms, with jazz being, I think, obviously the much cooler, far more influential one.
Yeah.
And square dancing being a quaint, Western-inflected oddity much beloved by people of generations much older than their grandparents. But back in the increasingly licentious pre-Great Depression days of the Roaring '20s, not everyone saw it as we see it today. No siree. And one person who very much did not see it that way was the son of William and Mary Ford, who went by the name Henry.
Yes.
That's right. The founder of the Ford Motor Company, the inventor of the modern assembly line, and one of the most important industrialists in world history, Henry Ford did not care for the jazz. Not one bit. Was it because he hated black people?
Yes.
Kinda.
Oh, okay.
It was really more because he hated, and I mean hated, the Jews. That's right.
Oh.
That's right. Ford despised the amazingly inventive, sexy, amazingly fun, improvisational music inextricably connected to Black America because he hated the Jews.
Does he just kind of hate, like, but the transitive property hates anything that sounds like Jews?
Juice and jazz. That was it, because
He hated
so much
juice.
Like jazz.
He hated orange juice.
Well, or maybe was there a period? Was there an undercurrent of Jewish jazz that I just don't know about?
There is a connection. There is a connection in American jazz between Jews and black people, and it really has more to do with kind of Jewish musicians being heavily influenced by it. And then you can look up like klezmer music, which definitely has some influence on what became American jazz. But
and klezmer music can be improvisational in some of the same ways that jazz is. That's interesting.
Yeah, but it's not for none of those reasons. No.
Right.
Does bigotry ever have to make some kind of sense? Never. But let's take a gander at his attempt to put some method behind this madness, shall we? Ford bought a newspaper called the Dearborn, Michigan Independent, mostly as a vehicle for publishing the hideous protocols of the Elders of Zion in serialized form. Now, we won't waste time with what those are here. You can go back and listen to episode 49 where we did a deep dive into that. They're horrendous. But he used the paper to generally vent his racist spleen as a godly white Christian rich man. In 1921, he wrote in his paper, "It is the purpose of this article to put people in possession of the truth concerning the moron music, which they habitually hum and sing and shout day and night, and if possible to help them see the invisible Jewish baton, which is waved above them for financial propaganda purposes. Just as American stage and motion picture have fallen under the control of the Jews and their art-destroying commercialism." This is from a huge businessman, which is hilarious. So the business of handling popular songs has become a Yiddish industry. The Jews who captured it in the early days of exploitation were, for the most part, Russian-born Jews, some of whom had personal pasts which were unsavory, as the pasts of many Jewish theatrical and movie leaders have been exposed to be. So, nice guy.
Wow.
It's even better.
What's nice is that all the evidence that he's provided.
So much evidences.
It's so well cited.
That's
evidence. What I like.
So Ford also wrote a 3-volume book and distributed 500,000 copies of it for free. See if you can detect what it might be about from this obscure title, fellas. The International Jew, in which we find this enlightening paragraph. "Many people have wondered whence comes the waves upon waves of musical slush that invade decent homes and set the young people of this generation imitating the drivel of morons. Popular music is a Jewish monopoly. Jazz is a Jewish creation. The mush, the slush, the sly suggestion, the abandoned sensuousness of sliding notes are of Jewish origin. And you had me at abandoned sensuousness, Henry.
I know.
Yeah. And he continues, and it really, really picks up here. Monkey talk, jungle squeals, grunts and squeaks and gasps suggestive of calf love are camouflaged by a few feverish notes and admitted in homes where the thing itself, unaided by scanned music, would be stamped out in horror.
Good
the
Lord.
fluttering music sheets disclose expressions taken directly from the cesspools of modern capitals to be made the daily slang, the thoughtlessly hummed remarks of schoolboys and girls.
Well, I need to listen to more jazz.
That dude, Henry Ford, must have been awesome at parties.
Yeah, he probably was a hell of a hoot. So, really smart move in some ways, and really stupid in some important ways as well. Henry Ford was convinced that jazz was actually not the invention of black Americans, but rather the Jews who used it to promote liquor, laziness, and sex among black Americans who Henry Ford considered too stupid to resist the siren call of the trumpet, the clarinet, and the upright bass. And Ford had plenty of admirers and devotees in this country and beyond. As I mentioned in my torturous intro, Ford very much admired one Mr. Hitler, who very much admired him back. In fact, Henry Ford is the only American to be mentioned by name in Hitler's Krieg der Crazy, Mein Kampf,
right,
and in a very fangirl terms. Henry and Adolf spent most evenings in the 1930s saying, "You hang up, no, you hang up, no, you," into their candlestick phones at either end of the transatlantic cable, right up until the U.S. declared war on Germany the day after Pearl Harbor, when Ford changed his tune. Now, Ford, he didn't suddenly develop a functional soul and a sense of shame for all the evil he had supported and published. He just knew being pro-Third Reich would be bad for business. So he never recounted his frothing anti-Semitism. He did apologize in a really roundabout way for publishing the protocols, but never for being... went to his deathbed as a Jew-hating crazy person. To be fair, as possible to this shitbag, he did become one of the leading producers of war hardware during World War II, eventually turning out a B-24 every hour. So cool. But just to
Which
put
I'm sure he did for free out of patriotism, right?
Who knows? Probably not. But just to put an oily orange twist on Ford and his dearest friend Hitler, when Donald John Trump, who was introduced at the Republican National Convention as Donald John President by one of his admirers, visited a Ford...
I didn't catch that.
You didn't see that? Oh, what an idiot. No. When he visited a Ford motor plant in Michigan just this year, out of nowhere, he started his slurred speech thusly. The company founded by a man named Henry Ford. Good bloodlines. Good bloodlines, if you believe in that stuff. You got good blood.
Wow.
Even with everything this idiot has said and done since he got his escalator repaired so he could ride down it, that one had me picking my jaw up off the floor. And it just washed away. Anyway, back to the Roaring Twenties. Ford convinced that Bolshevist Jews had duped the lazy blacks into becoming insanely brilliant jazz artists to keep them drunk and lazy, while also corrupting the flower of white American youth, who were having a ball sneaking into speakeasies to drink bathtub hooch and listen to jazz. He cast about for something of equally powerful cultural draw and lure to pull the young people away from the Jewy African decadence and despoilment. And what cool thing did this genius of manufacturing and marketing hit upon?
It's going to be good.
Square dancing! Fucking square dancing.
Oh, my God.
So... that's right. To counter the jazz craze that was positively sweeping the country and major cities and all around the world, Ford decided to hold a barn dance. So in 1923, he bought a hotel and hired a guy to teach square dancing there. And it turned out it was fairly popular with the guests, but they were all old white people staying at Henry Ford's hotel. So this got him all jazzed. I mean... not jazzed, anti-Semitically enthused,
right,
to take his message to a bigger barn. So in 1923, he published a wonderful little book called Good Morning. After a sleep of 25 years, old-fashioned dancing is being revived by Mr. and Mrs. Henry Ford. Wow. I love the name of that book.
Rolls right off the tongue.
Yeah, rolls right off the tongue. So with all the money and fervor he had used to send out hundreds of thousands of copies of the International Jew, he set forth to pour his wholesome vision of squeaky clean white boys and girls rounding each other to an old fiddle and banjo version of Turkey in the Straw all across the land.
Yeah, because the truth of the matter is that, like, the way to counteract moron music is...
Yeah, he really was a master of marketing, wasn't he? So equally culturally panicked bigots across the country took up the charge, forming clubs to act as pressure groups, and were soon not only lobbying their children to go down to the hoedown and chastely kick up their boots, but they were also lobbying their state and local legislators and school districts to force old-fashioned social dancing into the schools. And with Ford's seemingly endless resources and influence behind them, they fucking did it. So from the mid-1920s all the way to, checks my notes, now, schools all over the country, all over the U.S., adopted square dancing as part of their phys ed standards.
Oh, my God.
Millions of puzzled American kids showed up for gym class thinking they were going to get brained in dodgeball yet again, only to find themselves standing in a line facing a line of kids of the opposite sex and trying to figure out what an allemande was, what the fuck roll away to a half sachet could mean, and what in the world boxing the gnat, which is an actual move, could be referring to. So even though square dancing has waned to something near extinction in schools, there are plenty of kids still doing it in class. I watched some videos on YouTube from this year in states like California with middle and high school kids square dancing in their school gyms. And you know what's crazy? They look like they're having fun for the most part, however awkwardly, right? It's the old-timey heteronormativity, that's a word, and gender role enforcement aside, it is a very social dance form. Everybody kind of dances with everyone.
Sure.
Rather than one-on-one. Kids in the videos say how cool it was to meet and dance with people they never would have had a reason to talk to in school. And in a weird way, it is a really equalizing democratic activity. And some of the American...
It reminds one a little bit of the old courtly dances that used to happen where, you know, a garamond or whatever, where everybody sort of was required to sort of switch partners partway through, continually switching partners, just so that everyone got to know everybody.
Yeah, and that's kind of the roots of the actual dance, right? Not the music, but the actual dance comes from those. And some of that music is actually incredible. I found this great album of old-time just instrumental square dancing music. It's fantastic.
By the way, garamond is a typeface, not a dance. I don't know what I'm actually thinking of, but I just want to put it out there that I've realized that I said a word that wasn't the right thing.
It sounded like a word.
Doesn't it sound like a dance?
It should be a square dance. And I got to say, if you haven't seen a gym full of second graders concentrating with all their might to remember the moves as they dance to a square dance, it is fucking adorable. It's super cute. So it's good that it's fun, a little bit of exercise, and helps break down the barriers of, you know, social cliques in middle school, which can be awful. But none of those were the intended purpose. The purpose was to wage a culture war against a non-existent Jewish international conspiracy to mentally enslave indolent black people in order to destroy the white Christian American order and defile its most precious property, white female virtue. That's it. And literally tens of millions of us unwittingly participated in this evil, feverish jihad that haunted Henry Ford's hateful dreams. Unless we think it's all over, the square dancing jihadists that took Ford's dream and ran with it are still at it. And I'm not saying all of them are racists or anti-Semites, of course, and probably most of them likely have no idea the cause they're fighting for was born under that vile sign.
Right.
But in addition to schools still teaching square dancing, 28 states were badgered into making square dancing their official state dance by this effort. And lest you think this was done back in ye olde timey days, the bulk of states adopted it after 1990.
What? Oh, my God.
Yeah. 53 years after Ford died and 55 years after his BFF Hitler died. Missouri declared it in 1995. Nebraska in 1997, South Carolina and Utah in 1994, but whatever, we both suck. But Virginia adopted it in 2011.
What? Oh, my God.
There are so many types of American folk dance and modern dances from all over the place, but the square dancers absolutely demand their chaste, traditionally white dance form be recognized to the exclusion of all others. Given the history I've laid out, I can't but look on these continued efforts with a jaundiced eye, right? But here's the funny thing, that pretty much every form of American music is black music, and I'm not wrong. Fight me. Like jazz, blues, ragtime, rock and roll, hip-hop, obviously, and yes, even bluegrass and country. The banjo was invented by enslaved black people here, so shut the fuck up.
Yeah, it's when Mark, remember when you were at the cultural floor of the African American History Museum in Washington, D.C., and it's every bit, everything from Michael Jackson's glove to Chuck Berry's Cadillac.
Yeah.
And after just like after 2 or 3 hours, like, okay, I get it.
Yeah, okay, fuck, I suck, I get it. Right.
You guys invented all the things. Fine.
The things.
Yeah, and then you go down to the sports floor, and you're not going to feel better about yourself if you're a white guy. So, so Ford thought he found a lily white dance from found a lily white dance form with which to wage culture war against the scourge of Jewish and black jazz. And while it's true that the square dance itself is derived from European forms of dance and various typefaces, according to Dan, brought to the Americas by white colonizers.
By the way, it was the galliard that I was thinking of.
Thank God, straighten that out. But perhaps the most recognizably square dance things about square dance turn out to be of black origin. And that would be the music and the calling. The most critical part of the square dance band isn't the fiddle, it turns out. It's the caller, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The guy who calls out the moves to the, or gal, usually guy, calls out the moves to the right, to the right of the band. Square dancing is one of the most social forms of American dance. It was designed so everyone, regardless of age or dance ability, could participate. It ain't really hard. You just need some basic moves. So if you threw a party, everyone in your small community wanted to participate. So who was left to play the music? Slaves. That's who.
Oh, my God.
Right. So the children, the old people, everybody would square dance together, and it was the slaves that played the music. So slaves had to learn to play for all the white assholes out there, and in time had a great effect on the music itself. But as square dancing became super popular in the early 19th century, there weren't enough dance masters or dance teachers to go around to teach everyone the moves. So the bands invented the caller. So this is the iconic voice calling out the do-si-dos and the Allemande lefts. So the most critical job in square dancing is a black solution to a white problem. Color me surprised. Wow. So I very much doubt Henry Ford knew this fact. I very much doubt it. But I do sincerely hope that at the big Philemon barn dance in the outskirts of hell, where he is now, he's endlessly being called to reel a jig by a black Jewish dance caller and band forever and ever. Amen. So,
yeah.
Just to finish, I have written a square dance song that I will call now to sum up the whole thing. Swing your partners 2 by 2, kick the Jew and the jazz man too. Pump your elbow like a spigot, you're doing this because of a bigot. Hotsy-totsy, Nazi, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. What do you think?
I think you've got a future, buddy.
I think, yeah.
The square dance, it calls to me.
Yeah. And before you do any more of that, I'm going to promenade out of here.
Well, Uncle Mark, you might remember this. I hope to God you don't. But I spent a period of my youth clogging, which is some kind of cousin.
I love it.
Oh, I remember it. I was forced to go to the Salt Palace, which is a giant venue here, and watch you do it in time with like 200 kids.
Yeah, I did some enormous clogging routine.
Okay.
Yeah. And
patrons, we're going to have a patron goal. If we get enough patrons, we're going to make Doug clog, and we're going to put it on the YouTube channel. It'll happen.
It is a dance style invented for white people who can't dance, and Doug still could not do it.
It's tap dancing, but without the good stuff.
Yeah, but you did have a nice piece of red fringe sewn to the back of your white dress shirt. And
I sure did.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was a sight. So there you go. Square dancing.
Oh, my gosh.
It's not for Nazis anymore.
Let's just burn it all.
Let's Allemande out. Uncle Dan.
Hey, what? Yes. Hello.
Hello, it's Uncle
Are
Mark
you there?
here. Uncle Mark here. Do you copy?
Roger Wilco.
Kilo 7, Hotel November. Do you copy? Uncle Dan? I understand you are a fan of books.
You understand wrong.
Well, you're a fan of book.
I'm a fan of. Well, I do have a favorite book.
Sure.
I think it was it last week that I pronounced it the bad book.
The bad
Recently,
book, full of goodness,
full of nonsense. It's one of the worst books of all time. And what's great is if you look at it towards the end there, you get to read some crazy dude's letters to a bunch of other people.
Well,
epistles, if you will.
And if you think it's a bad book now, 20 minutes from now, you're not going to have a better opinion.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see what you got, Douglas.
Dear uncles, it seems that, try as we might, we just can't seem to stop this once great nation of ours from punching itself in the dick. 2 days ago was the 57th anniversary of the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, where Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his famous I Have a Dream speech. Although many thousands of people marked the anniversary by returning to that spot and advocating for that dream, it seems further away than ever. First, we have to get through our present waking nightmare before we can even think about dreaming. That speech is, of course, every racist's favorite speech on race, because it contains the only words that any racist can quote of Dr. King, quote, "We should not be judged by the color of our skin, but by the content of our character." This is, of course, not what Dr. King said. The actual quote was, quote, "I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character." It's amazing what a little context can do, or what a little lack of context can destroy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Indeed, that's why the right in this country seems to be waging a war on context.
Yeah, I'm happy to judge them by the content of their character if that's what they want.
Yeah, exactly. You're not going to come out great.
Exactly. Yeah. It is only through the context of the American slave trade that we can truly understand how and why we find ourselves in this intractable racial mess today. Eliminate that context, and you can blame victims for their own suffering. See the life and times of Clive and Bundy. And, of course, in the context of the American slave trade, slave owners found justification for their evil in a little book that we here on the How to Heretic don't much like, the Holy Bible.
Yay.
And it's in that little book that we find that even
favorite.
We love it. We can't seem to get away from it. It's in that little book that we find an even tinier book that did a lot of heavy lifting in giving shade to the antebellum South and is therefore still causing harm to this day. Today, let's talk about the itsy-bitsy evil that is the book of Philemon.
Oh, yeah, it's a huge favorite of mine.
Yes. Philemon is the 3rd shortest, or if you're not into the whole brevity thing, the 64th longest book in the whole Bible, coming in at a bare 335 words. As always,
Really?
It's tiny. As always, adhering to Uncle Doug's first rule of the Bible, this makes Philemon my 3rd favorite book in the Bible, with only 2nd and 3rd John coming in shorter, with 245 and 215 words, respectively.
Yes. The best Bible stories are the shortest ones.
That's correct. Interestingly, of the 5 longest books in the Bible, Jeremiah, Genesis, Psalms, Ezekiel, and Exodus, we've dedicated 3 full uncles and 7 segments to the cause, with me covering Genesis in episodes 120 and 121, Uncle Mark covering Ezekiel in episode 86,
That's dreadful.
And Uncle Dan almost covering Exodus in episodes 106, 107, 108, and 109.
Well, I had to leave some for the spirit of Elijah.
He got lost in Exodus, which is probably as it was meant to be.
Pretty telling.
Yeah.
Don't worry, Jeremiah and Psalms, your time is coming. As longtime listeners will no doubt remember, we have tackled the structure of the Bible in general and the New Testament in particular many times, but there is something interesting about the tiny book of Philemon. The New Testament is broken down into 4 main parts: the Gospels, consisting of the 4 retellings of the life of Jesus; the history, consisting only of the book of Acts, which I talked about in episodes 149 and 150; the letters, consisting of 20 epistles, 14 by Paul, although only 7 are considered to have actually been written by him; and the Apocalypse, consisting only of the book of Revelation, which I talked about in episodes 58 and 60. We really have dedicated a lot of time to this stupid book. Each of these 4 sections can be broken down into subsections, such as the 3 synoptic Gospels and John, the Pauline epistles and the non-Pauline epistles. If you keep breaking it down, the book of Philemon finds itself alone, and this is true, in section 3, subsection A, subsection 2, subsection I, as the only non-pastoral, individually addressed, authentic letter written by Paul. So
that stuff that's dynamite fact, Doug.
Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Yeah, I hope you never have to use that fact.
I need a cool drink.
Like I mentioned before, it is mercifully short, consisting of a single page of text. However, terrible things can indeed come in tiny packages. Take, for example, the coronavirus or Danny DeVito. No, look. Okay, everybody.
We are pro Danny. We are pro DeVito on this show.
Everybody thinks he's great, but that's just because the truth is being suppressed by Big DeVito. So,
is Big DeVito the name of his brother Rob?
Big Rita Rudner.
Oh, so anyway, boy, has this tiny book been responsible for a veritable megatonnage of suffering. So before we dive in, let's talk about the contents of the letter, because it seems fairly out of place in the Bible for reasons we'll explain. And if one were not paying attention, one might miss the downright evil implications in what it says, and more importantly, what it does not say. The book is a letter written by Paul while he was a prisoner in Caesarea to a wealthy, powerful Christian in Colossia named Philemon. Paul, who is imprisoned with his traveling companion Timothy, addresses the letter to Philemon and to Apphia, probably Philemon's wife, and Archippus, probably Philemon's son. After several verses of pleasantries in which Paul is clearly trying to butter up Philemon, even mentioning how he, Philemon, quote, refreshes the bowels of the saints. I don't know what that means. That's got to be a coffee enema, right?
I don't know. The mind can just wander on that for a while.
Let it stew.
Yeah.
Paul finally gets onto the business. The point of the letter is to plead with Philemon to free one of his slaves, Onesimus, who has run away to Paul and converted to Christianity. Paul has written this entreaty and sent Onesimus himself back to Philemon to deliver the letter.
It's probably a bad idea.
That doesn't seem...
for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Paul begs Philemon to see Onesimus not as a runaway slave, but as a brother in Christ, and even promises to pay any debts that Onesimus might owe Philemon. We don't know what wrong Onesimus has committed besides running away. However, under Roman law, runaway slaves fared no better than their counterparts in the American South, and could be punished by their owners in any way they saw fit, including execution.
Right.
So Paul further hints that not only would it be great if Philemon forgave Onesimus, but also it would be super nice if you could see fit to free him and let him return and work with me. Thanks. Paul was counting on his prominence in the Christian church to sway Philemon, who again was a recent convert to the church, as were all Christians at the time.
Yeah.
We don't know whether Philemon found this argument persuasive and freed Onesimus or killed him, but the inclusion of the book in canon probably means things worked out okay, at least for Onesimus. Paul does mention Onesimus one time in the Epistle of Colossians, but it's unclear if the epistle was written right before or right after Philemon, so it doesn't help us know what eventually happened. So, why include this little book in the New Testament at all? There is no preaching done, no doctrine laid out. Jesus is only mentioned in passing, and mostly it's just a pretty pedestrian letter from one dude to another. Well, if you read the myriad articles by your various and sundry Christian groups and think tanks is in quotes, and they are myriad, this little nugget not only shows how good and decent a guy Paul was, but further it demonstrates that even in the early Christian church, slaves were considered people. In fact, they say this so often and so loudly that one might suspect that they are overcompensating for something, and one would be right. Now, the Bible and Paul himself are responsible for some indisputably pro-slavery passages. A couple favorites are what would come to be called the curse of Cain or the curse of Ham, when in Genesis 9, Ham saw his dad's waggly bits, and Noah proclaimed, quote, "Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren. And he said, Blessed be the Lord God of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. And God shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant." There's another one, famous one in both Colossians and Ephesians, when Paul himself said the following, quote, "Servants," which is slaves, "be obedient to them that are your masters according to the flesh, with fear and trembling." in singleness of your heart as unto Christ, not with eye service as men pleasers, but as the servants of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart, with goodwill doing service as to the Lord, and not to men, knowing that whatsoever good thing any man doeth, the same shall he receive of the Lord, whether he be bond or free. Those are pretty bad. While Philemon says nothing is explicit, it is at least as nefarious, perhaps more so because of its seeming innocuousness. This tiny little book in the Bible, often referred to as Paul's postcard, tells us two unequivocal things. One, I, Paul, and the Christian church I am the head of, have absolutely no problem with the institution of slavery whatsoever.
Right.
And two, you can absolutely, positively, undeniably be a good and faithful Christian and own slaves. Paul does not inveigh against the evil of slavery. In fact, he recognizes its authority and offers his own money to satisfy it. Nor does he reprimand Philemon for owning slaves and command him to stop the practice. In fact, he calls Philemon, who is a slave owner, his dearly beloved, and speaks effusively of Philemon's, quote, love and faith which thou hast toward the Lord Jesus and toward all the saints. It seems clear that modern Christianity is aware of the moral landmine in the text and has been buying ink by the barrelful to try and say that it doesn't say what it says. Their main justification was that slavery was so ingrained in Roman, Greek, and Hebrew societies at the time that it would have been either unwise or suicidal to challenge it. Here, for example, is Professor Beverly Roberts Gaventa's attempt at a scriptural triple Lindy, quote, an abolitionist would have been at the same time an insurrectionist, and the political effects of such a movement would have been unthinkable, end quote. Here is the problem with all that noise. You cannot claim that your religion and the book it is based on are the timeless, sublime, moral pinnacle of human endeavor and say it's just a product of its time and place.
Yeah.
You cannot claim the perfect ethical immutability of your God and have a book like Philemon.
Well, and it's not like the rest of the New Testament isn't like whenever you hear Christians talking about what's that guy's name again? Oh yeah, Jesus.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
They're talking about a guy, and they're proud. They're talking proudly about how he bucked all of the social norms of the time.
He was a political revolutionary as well as a a religious one.
You're 100% correct. The very religion, Christianity, was an insurrectionist religion.
Yeah.
It rejected and supplanted Yahweh, Jupiter, and Zeus at the same time.
Yeah.
Why could it not have outlawed slavery?
Get some pushback.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Why could it not have outlawed slavery, even if only inside itself?
Right.
If taking on the Roman Empire over slavery was political suicide, it could have at least been a religion that did not itself take and own slaves.
Yeah.
The answer, of course, is that it could have, but it didn't want to. Christians are once again left in the terrible position of trying to explain away the rank immorality of their founding texts while trying to claim the moral high ground they have absolutely no business being near. Sorry, guys, you were wrong on slavery. You are disqualified.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm starting to think the Bible is not the Liahona it's been made out to be.
Well, it is because the Liahona was also useless. And
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there it is. It's a little tiny book that just absolutely 100% condones slavery.
Yeah. From the true head, the real founder of Christianity, Paul.
Exactly. And that's a really good point because it's not something lost in the Old Testament that can be easily dismissed as, the old prophets, Jesus came and changed everything. This was the post-Jesus Christianity that had this view and this opinion.
Yeah.
So, throw it on the pile and then set it on fire.
Yeah.
Well, I'm against it, and if I had known Philemon was that short, I might have not fucked around with Ezekiel and lost a week of my life.
Yeah. Now it's going to be a mad dash for the rest of the short books in the Bible.
Yeah, true. Well. At least Ezekiel had a fucking flying saucer.
That's true.
You just got the boring slavery stuff. All right. Well, cool, Doug. Thanks for that fun justification. And it's again when Christians talk about the abolitionists, the American slavery abolitionists used the Bible to justify abolition. Well, so did everybody else on the other side.
Yeah, right. And this book, a lot of Southern slave owners saw themselves as Philemon, as good, holy Christians who owned slaves. And the book of Philemon proves that they were right.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Right. So there you go. The Bible. Buy it, burn it, bury it.
Don't buy it.
Don't buy
actually
it. Just,
buy it.
Yeah, go to a hotel room, and there's a guy named Gideon left one by the bedstand for you. So,
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, thanks, Doug.
Well, fellas,
Whoa.
Yes.
here, we're just shouting into the void here. We're just talking into the wind.
You know what happens when you shout into the void?
What?
It shouts back at you.
Or, and this I think is a much better outcome. It gives you some money.
Hey.
And that's a really lovely thing. So,
according to the Supreme Court, money is speech, so that counts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'll allow it this one.
Thank you.
But yes, we had some folks give us a little bit of their hard-earned coin, and boy, do we appreciate it. And so we need to give some thanks. So thanks, first of all, to Harold, who gave us some money on the PayPal, and new patrons Donna and Jasmine. Thank you guys so much for joining with all the other patrons who have who are now enjoying the privileges that patrondom affords them.
Yes,
and if you would like
the
to
velvet rope,
yeah, exactly. And if you would like to understand what privileges those are, and perhaps join these people, you can do so by going to howtoheretic.com, clicking on the support us little button there. You'll be able to go to the Patreon page. You'll see what treasures await you. And then you just sign up. It's super easy. You decide how much you want to give us, and that's how much we know you love us. So do that. Or, Uncle Mark, how else can they support us?
You can build a constellation for us. And as you know, constellation is defined by Webster's dictionary as 5 stars or more.
Right.
So that's what you can do. Go to any place where you get these podcasts and hit the 5 stars, hit it again. If you see anybody hitting 4 or 3, hit them.
Yeah.
And just brighten our sky. And together one day we will join each other under it and dance once again.
Yes, indeed. Thanks, you guys, so much. Let's do some more show.
Thanks, guys.
Toodaloo. Uncle Doug.
Hello, I'm here for some reason.
I said you could say that every week, and we still don't know what that reason is. But apparently, Doug, here, even in our fair city of Salt Lake, the Queen City, as Brigham Young wanted to call it, we have a traffic problem.
Do we?
Yeah.
I haven't left the house in 6 months. I don't really know.
Yeah, how would we know?
How would we even know? But apparently our Attorney General just won't shut up about it. So we got a traffic problem. Dan, what do you know about it?
Well, I'll get to it circuitously, just like traffic in Salt Lake City.
As you do, yeah.
Longtime listeners, or those who have gone back and plumbed the depths of our back catalog, will recall that way back in episode 23, you, Uncle Mark, took a powerful look at the terrifying nightmare that was the Satanic Panic.
Yes, that's exactly right.
And like real nightmares, i.e. the crazed imaginings of our brains at night, it turned out that it was all bullshit and never actually happened.
Right.
But the frenzied desire to stop it actually ended up ruining thousands of lives.
Easily, yeah.
Well, if that idiotic moment in our history points to anything, it's that humans are dingbats. We love to be scared, and when we're scared, rather than being wisely skeptical of outrageous claims, we are actually super energized by them. But Uncle Dan, I hear nobody asking me, surely we've learned our lesson and nobody would be like that now. Well, nobody. Unfortunately, that's not the case. The new crazed conspiracy theory that's actually making things worse for people experiencing a real problem is human trafficking. Utah's own... Yeah, and you mentioned Utah's Attorney General, Sean Reyes, who actually talked about this issue a little bit on the national stage when he spoke at the Republican National Convention this week. I don't know if you guys caught that. Not worth looking up. But Here's the thing.
I couldn't hear him over Kimberly Guilfoyle screaming. So.
Right.
And I didn't have my TV on, and I could hear her.
Yeah, we were all deafened a little bit, so it was hard to hear the other speakers.
Yeah.
Listen, human trafficking is real. It's a terrible thing that actually happens, but it's not happening in the way that these idiots are talking about it. So we've decided to bring in somebody who knows way more about the horrifying realities of awful humans than I do to talk about it. Uncle Mark, do you want to set this guy up? You want to introduce our friend?
Yeah. So this is we're kind of lucky to have this expertise on call. So this is an old friend of mine, Greg Rogers. Greg, you were a undercover special agent for 30 years.
30 years
in the FBI.
Yep.
30 years, and Greg, correct me if I'm wrong. Your two main beats were taking down kind of militia, white nationalist, neo-Nazi types, and the other one was tracking down American pedophile sex tourists in Southeast Asia. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So Greg was out there watching the walls, and I'm pretty glad that the people Greg took off the street are off the street.
Yes,
so welcome
indeed.
to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Nice.
So, Greg, first, can you tell us? I mean, Uncle Mark told us a little bit about you, but tell us about you and your work, especially the work in pedophilia.
Yep, sure. I started working cases involving just. I don't mean to downplay it, but just say just. But I mean, I began by working child pornography matters. I'd been an undercover for a while, working violent crimes, narcotics, biking gangs, but then I started working child pornography cases undercover and working people here in the United States. And
that's quite a promotion, isn't that wonderful? What a nice thing.
Yeah, sadly, it's there's more of that work than we can handle. I mean, it's and ironically, if Utah being a small population. When I got transferred to the Salt Lake City office, we were busier here than any office I'd ever been in. We prosecute as many child pornography cases in Utah as any office in the United States, and that doesn't mean per capita. I mean pure numbers.
Oh, that's God. Something to be proud of.
Insane.
Yeah, it's
Utah. And do you have a sense of why Utah was a hot spot on that?
It's a guess. But it's. I don't know, repressed sexuality. I did some strange, because when I got transferred here, I thought the work would be much less than in, San Antonio, right. Other places I'd been in Texas where you have millions of people in the same cities. I'd worked with friends in LA and much bigger offices, and Utah was, it was stunning. It's off the charts. And
wow.
Yeah. And then,
it's weird that the Tourism Bureau hasn't picked up on that, because that's an impressive stat.
They don't put that out. And I think in Utah, quite frankly, it's a community with a lot of trust issues with and I worked a ton of cases, and I'm not trying to be negative about any particular church, but I mean, I worked a lot of cases where people were in leadership positions in the Mormon Church, and they were trusted. So
you're on a safe podcast venue to say that. I think.
Okay,
fine.
Okay,
yeah.
but and we'll get back. Sorry, we'll get back to the idea of like churches and how all that happens. But I do want to talk about your time overseas, because you spent a bunch of time going to different countries and going after Americans who were going there specifically to do something awful.
Yeah, I got recruited with really there were just 5 of us that got recruited to start going to Southeast Asia and just to track child sex tourists, because we passed one of the odd times that the government actually does something really well. They passed a child sex tourism statute, the Protection Act, in like 2003, and all we needed to do to arrest Americans that were traveling overseas was to prove that they traveled to have sex with minors. So our job was to go over there. We'd go over for 2 weeks, a month. Sometimes we were in Cambodia, Vietnam, Thailand, the Philippines, Indonesia. We would be invited by these countries to come and find out where the Americans were going, where they were meeting the minors, how this was all set up. So we just go over there and be undercover as pedophiles hanging out with those guys. And fortunately, again, it was one of those strange times where the government actually did it right. They formed that statute in such a way that the Americans didn't have to actually perpetrate on a kid to get arrested. So we could get them into conversations about how many times they've been in this country, how many kids they've had sex with. We just act like we were kind of new and nervous about it and scared and didn't know where to go. And these guys would start acting like your mentor. I mean, it was like something they thought was a compliment to them. So they start.
It's a very kind community.
It's
don't
a
you think?
very
They really
very
look out
kind,
for each other.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and they would be very helpful. I mean, they'd tell you which clubs to go to, which madams to meet with, and so it was, and you'd just essentially get a confession that they'd traveled over there to have sex with minors. They'd done it before, and that's all we needed to prove. And so we would get a lot of guys, that way.
Wow. That I just can't imagine the psychological fortitude necessary to hang out with those guys and try to convince them that you were friends with them and all that sort of stuff. That must have been an incredible
It weighs
mind
on
fuck.
you a little bit, and they when you're doing that, we have to go see psychologists every 6 months to make sure we're squared away and not going off the rails. And it's different. It's different working those kind of cases because when you're working bikers and which I did a ton of, I don't mean to downplay, but it's kind of a lot of fun. And you're riding around, going to Sturgis, riding around, being a biker with these guys. And if I don't pop them for 30 days, 60 days, a year, I don't care. I mean, it's drugs on the street and it's all that kind of stuff. But when you're working pedophiles and someone is perpetrating, especially on a road trip, they are perpetrating every day that they are in one of those foreign countries. So it keeps you up at night because every day you don't get that guy, he's damaging some young kid's life. So it's a different way of it's a whole different type of case. So it keeps you going.
Yeah, indeed. Well, okay, so you clearly, obviously, have a sense of the realities, working the child pornography beat, working this beat. You have a sense of the realities of how this works, which is why I wanted you to come and talk to us. Because here's the thing, human trafficking has blown up as an issue in the United States, and a lot of it has been fueled by some pretty outrageous claims made by people on like 4chan and QAnon believers and stuff, which all started, of course, with Pizzagate, which, if, for our listeners who don't understand or don't remember it, Pizzagate was this conspiracy theory that came about because of that WikiLeaks leak with all of John Podesta's emails to Hillary Clinton and to other people. Somebody hacked his email and then they leaked it.
It was Greg that hacked it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Greg, well, you unleashed hell, buddy.
If I was able to hack your computer, you do not have a very decent security system because I am no pro. Yeah.
Well, so then people started to see Podesta emailing people about pizza, and somehow they got the idea that pizza was code for trafficking in children.
Right.
And then this pizza joint, this ping pong pizza joint in D.C. gets caught up in everything, and it all it culminated sort of when that guy when a young 20-something-year-old man busted into the place with literal guns blazing, and an AR-15 and a handgun and fired a couple shots into the ceiling or whatever, only to find that place not only didn't have children locked up in a basement ready to be trafficked, but didn't even have a basement. So
it was pretty funny how it was just like the scene in Pee-wee's Big Adventure when everybody was laughing at him outside the Alamo.
Right, yeah. There's no Alamo in the basement.
Yeah.
Or basement in the Alamo.
Yeah, it was just like
and
that.
You'd think that would have put an end to the conspiracy theorizing. Just such a very obvious proof that what they had been claiming wasn't happening.
Yeah.
But no, it has spiraled even further out of control. Now people are implicating people like Oprah and Ellen and Piers Morgan and Tom Hanks. Basically anyone who's famous or left wing, because obviously it doesn't apply to people that they like. And it's got so the image in people's minds is of literally dungeons in the basements of mansions of the wealthy elite with mostly foreign children in chains.
Yeah.
They're
they're talking about
anything, Greg?
hundreds of thousands, Dan. I was looking today, and the claim from a Republican candidate for Congress, this guy who spoke at the RNC, is hundreds of thousands of children.
Right. And let's be clear that there are probably hundreds of thousands of missing children in the world, maybe more. I saw a figure. The problem is I don't know. It's hard to know what to believe when you look at some of this stuff. So, Greg, in your experience, is that what child trafficking looks like?
No, it doesn't look like that at all. That's the human trafficking. I know I sound like a hopeless cynic, but I am about the politicians who are doing this kind of nonsense. It's become an industry, and it's a very successful way to raise funds. And you can.
To be clear, you're saying that talking about
Yes.
human trafficking is an industry,
Yes.
not the actual trafficking.
Oh
of
no,
humans.
the human trafficking it's horrific, and I've seen real human trafficking too many times. But it's when I hear politicians here in the States making nonsensical claims like that, it's maddening because it denigrates the actual problem, and it also but they're very successful in using those arguments, not even real arguments, just statements to raise tons of money, as evidenced by our Attorney General here, who you referenced his speech where he called himself a warrior because of his warrior heritage, which I'm not sure what that was. I was a little nervous he was going to start doing some kind of haka dance or something there and rapping, but thankfully he didn't. But it was it's nonsense. But he raises an immense amount of money, talking about human trafficking all the time when he knows nothing about it.
Well, you say he knows nothing about it, but I do want to talk to you about this. He actually went on an operation with Operation Underground Railroad into Colombia himself, posing as a security guard for this group of fake guys who were claiming they were gonna invest in a thing, and he claims that they actually foiled an underground a ring of traffickers. So, what are your thoughts about groups like Operation Underground Railroad,
Operation
which
Underground
is making
Railroad
a lot of money
is
right
a
now?
very successful money-raising venture. They've done the Ballard, who started Operation Underground Railroad, is an ego run amok that knows he should know better. He was a federal agent for a short amount of time before he left the Department of Homeland Security and started Operation Underground Railroad. We do not work with them. The FBI wouldn't work with them because I actually set them up at a meeting in Thailand to meet with our assistant legal attaché there. They came over babbling about having Navy SEALs and wanted to drop into the country armed and hitting places that they believed, and I mean, you had to have basic conversations with them like, in Thailand, you're not cops. You're not even cops in the States. You can't drop into a foreign country with weapons and start raiding brothels. you end up in a Thai jail if you do that,
right.
And we won't do anything for you if that happens. So,
but that's what they were promising. That's how they started raising money, right? That they were literally going to be this kind of SEAL Team 6 that was going to go rescue children.
Yeah, they've changed their website a lot. It used to have a bunch of people who were purportedly former SEALs, and they called themselves jump teams going into these foreign countries, which is it's just crazy. And it's but they've raised a ton of money. They've got their CrossFit gyms, and and in Huntsman's campaign, you had Ballard, is one of the guys in the Trib supporting Huntsman. So it's
that would be John Huntsman, who was a former Utah governor and was running to be governor again.
Yeah, who's considered the sane one.
Right.
And, right. What's amazing is that this Tim Ballard of Operation Underground Railroad has done such an effective job of marketing or of messaging,
right?
That he's perceived as a hero.
Oh,
and it's all predicated on this big macho commando sort of idea. But is that the best way to fight human trafficking?
No, it's a great way to get yourself in a Thai or a Cambodian jail. I mean, it's
or a graveyard.
Yeah. I mean, it's a nonsensical way to approach the problem, because even as FBI agents, we are cops. But when we go into a foreign country to assist with arresting U.S. citizens that are traveling, we have to be invited in by that foreign country. We're not, we're federal agents here. We're tourists in Cambodia, Thailand, any place else.
Right.
We have to be invited in by the country. There's all sorts of stuff that has to go on with our ambassador and their people, and they know what we're doing. We cooperate with their national police when we're there. We work together, and there's a whole lot that goes into making that happen. And a bunch of private citizens in the United States can't run around the world with AR-15s and act like they're jumping out of planes and going into brothels. I mean, that's not a way to fix this. And if you really understood the problem, they would know that while you may have some success in taking these young children out of these brothels, you've helped those young children you took out that day, but they're replaced the following day. So you did nothing to solve the larger problem.
So we've talked about what isn't happening, which is, all of these elite rings of people chaining people up and, kidnapping and chaining kids up. Right. I want to talk a little bit about what actually is happening and what is a problem and what we should be looking for.
It's interesting because around the world, I mean, the worst things that you've heard about are happening. There are, in Southeast Asia, there are brothels I could go into any day of the week. They're in parts of the cities in Bangkok, Pattaya, Phnom Penh, where you go in and there are adults that are dancing on the floor, but if you know the right madam to talk to, you can get directed to where you can find whatever age you're interested in. And so that's clearly going on, and it's horrific. There are, in other countries, there's all sorts of human trafficking that has to do with forced labor. So these things are prominent in different parts of the world, but those things aren't happening here. There are circumstances where, for instance, MS-13, Central American gang that's become very active in the United States, does take young ladies and force them into prostitution to make money. That's human trafficking. So that happens here. That's going on in major cities. And so I don't want to say it's not going on here, but it's not going on here like it's going on in different parts of the world in any way. I mean, nothing to even closely approximate it.
Well, so one of the things that I've read about that I know that is happening and that is what we should be concerned about in the United States and other parts of the world is one of the definitions, one of the things that is defined as human trafficking is any time a child, someone underage, is forced or coerced or defrauded into any form of commercial sex act.
Right.
That's considered human trafficking.
Right.
And the thing is that does happen here.
Yes, it does.
But it's not rings of elite organizations that are doing it. It's their family members.
No, sadly, I was going to say it's absolutely most often family members, and that happens on. You can get on any number of encrypted sites if you have passcodes to get on, where they're full of movies of young children who are being molested in every hideous way you can imagine. And the vast majority of those movies were made by family members with their either their own children or nieces and nephews. And then they trade those movies. Most often, it's not a moneymaker. They're trading those movies to get movies from other people. So usually, it's just
to feed their own desires.
Yes, yeah. So it's not like they're selling those things.
And also, you alluded to this before, but there are a few actual major organizations that participate in this, but they're usually called things like the Catholic Church.
Right.
Yeah. Jesus, yeah.
I mean, one of the things that I wanted to
being a pedophile with your own country and diplomatic immunity. I mean, that's something.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's one of the things that I wanted to make sure that people were aware of is that don't bother looking for, places where dungeons where kids are chained up. Look for adults who the children are supposed to trust, grooming children to trust them and do things for them that they shouldn't be doing.
No, and
that's what the problem is.
Yeah, and it's and these people are there are sadly individuals who are very, very good at it. I mean, and they can groom. I don't know how many parents I've interviewed whose children have been abused by school teachers, church leaders, and they just can't believe it happened. But when you're talking to the parent, you'll be like, you let this guy, like a third grade school teacher, you let this guy take your boy on camping trips by himself. You let him spend the night at his house. You let him go over there to do gaming. And it's and you're like, what were you? Didn't you think that was unusual that this third grade teacher had all this interest in your, 11-year-old, a 9-year-old boy? And but these guys are unbelievably talented at gaining the trust of not only the kid, which is most important to them, but of their parents, and pulling that off. And it's amazing. Yeah. I mean, in Southeast Asia, one of the real difficulties we had, the one flaw in the statute I was referencing is they have to travel to have sex with minors in foreign countries. So if they move there, that's a whole different deal, and it's more difficult. And so we would have, there are tons of almost all related to one religious organization or another, churches. And you would have teachers in those schools, American teachers that were teaching English as a second language, and a good percentage of them were pedophiles, and they were there because they were preferential. They liked a certain age group, and they would teach that age group, and they would have
gain their trust.
Yeah, just ready-made victims, and they would. It was stunning, and we arrested a lot of those teachers that were over there, and
Well, one thing that I think we talked about this when we originally had this conversation, Greg, is that you said there were 5 of you who worked kind of the Southeast Asian beat.
Yep.
And I'm sure there were several other agents that might have worked similar beats in the United States.
Mainly Central South America, Eastern Europe. We were all over the place.
But, at the end of the day, there's a finite amount of investigative resources for this, right? Like when and these I kind of read about this, these hotlines that people can call to agencies that are actually trying to prevent human trafficking and relocate children that have gone missing, etc., are just getting swamped with this bullshit. Yeah. Like the works are getting completely gummed up. What few works there are getting completely gummed up by this absurdity. Yeah.
Oh, no question. Especially here in Utah, there was a couple years back, maybe 3-4 years ago now. Everybody was convinced that every single massage parlor in town that had an Asian name was a place where human trafficking was taking place. They were absolutely convinced that everybody that was working in there was here and somehow had their identifications taken from them, and they were being forced to give these massages. And so there were tons of calls about that, and people, and it just wasn't the case. And I'm not in any way saying that the people that worked in some of those places were treated fairly and kindly. I mean, it's not true, but it wasn't. That doesn't make it human trafficking.
Right. Well, Greg, thank you so much for coming on. I mean, more than anything, what I wanted to do was just sort of maybe try and pour some cool water on the flames that are being fanned right now, and just get the word out that while there are real problems surrounding this, it's not what people are getting excited about right now, and maybe we should be a little more circumspect when it comes to our zeal.
Yeah.
To
always consider
people.
The source of the information. That's good for any topic.
Right.
Yeah.
And if I could just real quick, for people that are really interested in this, and again, please understand, I'm not a huge fan usually of most of what the federal government does, because we can confuse things and make it very complicated. But the State Department does put out what they call the Trafficking in Persons Report every year. And for those who are interested, you should read it, because it goes through horrific things that are happening in different countries, how they look at those things, which countries are on lists. And it lays it out pretty well year after year about where the real issues are. And you'll see that there is, because I don't want to at all sound like I'm downplaying human trafficking. It's a horrible problem in our world. It's right. Not going on in the United States the way it's portrayed by a current crop of politicians.
Well, thanks so much for coming on and depressing us all and making us all feel horrible. We genuinely appreciate it.
Oh, I'm very thankful I could do that for you.
Well, friends, that's it for this week's surprisingly dark show.
Yes, indeed. Hey, if you've ever written a pro-slavery letter to someone, we'd love to hear about it. Send us an email at howto@howtoheretic.com.
Or if you can, you think you can bust my fucking square dancing songwriting chops, you can leave me a voicemail about it at 903-8802, which is 903-884-6986. This song must also be extremely racist. I'm also on Twitter at howtoheretic.
And once again, we give lovely thanks to our lovely patrons.
Yes, and to Cody Layton, who is our shortest book in the Bible.
And thanks to all of you for tuning in.
Bye, friends.